So everybody out there is complaining now how expensive gaming has become. Consoles, PC parts, games, subscriptions. But you wanna know something that probably nobody told you. It's your fucking fault. I see many, complaining about the prices, but then what they do? They buy anyway. You literally turned this industry in a scam that feeds on your stupidity. But let's go back in time for a second. You remember the glorious PlayStation 2 era? You bought that game worked. 99% of the time you didn't even have to read reviews. You bought that game, maybe the game sucked, but you know that from start to finish you were able to complete that game. No internet, no day one patches, no connection required, nothing. Everything just worked. And that's because developer couldn't afford to release broken games. Not only because people wouldn't buy, but because magazine of the time definitely wouldn't have been nice with that game. Not like nowadays, Then came the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. And that was a turning point. Sure, it was a golden age for creativity, but also was the start of the decay. Before that, yes, PCs has already expansions, big chunks of new content, sometimes you are getting it for free, sometimes you have to pay, but it was a big deal. They weren't called DLC yet. And I think that everything changed with The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I love that game, but I remember that then they released this DLC, the infamous DLC called Horse Armor, which was a useless cosmetic for $2.50. And I remember that many people were furious about that, But with many furious people, you have also many dumb people. And that thing sold. That thing sold a lot. And as soon publishers saw the money, the door was open. There was nothing you could do anymore. Sure, there was many gamers, I remember even in forums, trying to tell to the others, dude, don't buy it will be worse for us. They will start to not include those content in the game, but just as an extra DLC. And the response was always the same that you can hear even nowadays. I have the right to do whatever I want, those are my money, $2.50 is nothing, and blah 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 blah. Congratulations! You built the system that bleeds you today. From there, DLC became normal. Call of Duty, Gears of War, Mass Effect, all of the big franchises started to have DLCs. Every scam was now wrapped as a content. But here's the difference. Back then, players still have limits. When Sony released the PlayStation 3 for $599, gamers said no. And what happened some months later? Sony had to do a $200 cut to start to sell that console. And same happened with Nintendo. Do you remember when Nintendo released the 3DS? They were coming from a huge, successful console, which was the Nintendo DS. And they tried to milk their audience with a $250 console. And you know what was the response? This was the response from people. And you know what happens few months later? I think it was 3-4 months later. The price of the 3DS, of a new 3DS, dropped to 32%. We went from $250 to, if I'm correct, $170. That was huge, guys, and showed just something, that gamers had and still have the power in their hands. The problem is just that gamers are too stupid to use this power, they can't wait, but we will get to that. So gamers refuse to be milked. That worked beautifully. Fast forward to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and that was the era where apathy took over. A lot of games started to be launched broke. Most of them with a day one patches. 10, 20 gigabytes sometimes, just to make the game, playable. And you know why developers stopped to care about a finished game? Because you proved them that doesn't matter what, you will still buy it. Then came the pandemic. And I think this is the peak of human stupidity. 2020 didn't really start bad. We got a new Microsoft console for $499 and a cheaper one if you wanted to jump, in the next generation for $299. Sony has a PlayStation 5 with a disc for $499 and only digital one for $399. It was awesome. And on top of that, Nvidia released a crazily good GPUs. You could buy a RTX 3070 for $499, a graphic card that has the same power of the top of the previous generation that costed $1,200. Like, dude, it was awesome, but then we all know the pandemic arrived, the material shortage also, and the scalpers did the rest. Scalpers started to sell PlayStation 5 for $1,000 or even more. The Nvidia 3000 series, same. You wanted a 3070, pay at least a double if you were lucky. You wanted like a 3090, pay 2000 or even more. And I remember I was thinking, wow, those scalpers are so stupid. They really think that people will pay for a new console that barely have any new games for the system, since it's shared a lot with the PlayStation 4, you know. I was pretty wrong. People just buy it. People spend so much money on new graphic card to replace their old graphic card that work the same as the new one, paying double or sometimes triple the price. And you know what corporation learned with it? That price doesn't matter and that people will pay no matter what. $70 now is a standard for a game. Sometimes is even 80. Sometimes is even 90, like for Mario Kart. A game that sure is a good game, but don't tell me that has the same developing cost of The Witcher 3 or Cyberpunk. Consoles cost more than what they used to 5 years ago. We have a Xbox Series X, one with 2 terabytes of SSD. If I'm correct, it's $750. $750 for a console that came out 5 years ago. And let's not talk about graphic cards. Nvidia just showed that they can raise the price as much as they want, and people were still in line to buy a 5000 series. Microsoft, that barely sell any consoles anymore, even raised the price of Game Pass to $30 monthly. $30. And I don't want to see anybody in the comment section, but you know, we are in the time where there's so much commercial war, you know, between countries like China and you're stupid. You're stupid. Those people, those multi-millionaire companies are making thousands and thousands of profit on you. Your paycheck probably is the same as it was like 10 years ago. Their paychecks are going just up and up and up. There's no crisis for them. And a console that costed $500 at the time and was already profitable, it doesn't cost more right now. It doesn't cost more right now to produce. So yeah, publishers know that you will line up for anything. They know you will defend them online. Like I've seen even people doing still constantly with Pokemon ZNA. A game that probably if you take 10 people and teach them how to use Unreal Engine for 6 months will do a better job than that game. A game that is sold for $70 plus $30 of DLC that was announced before the release of the game, plus $20 to play online, $120 for the entire experience. $120. Take a look at that game. I can imagine, I can see them laughing at you inside their studio, thinking, oh, look at us, we can make shitty games that looks like shit and they will still buy it. Those morons will still buy it. And now with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series generation, we hit the rock bottom. Most of the games are unplayable at launch. Most of the games stutter, and sometimes they're not even fixed. I'm still waiting to play Oblivion. I didn't buy it, and the stutters are still there. I'm still waiting for Silent Hill 2 to fix the stutters, and there is no fix. And I can only imagine people that spend $750 for a PlayStation 5 Pro that got the worst version of Silent Hill because they used the PSSR, which supposedly should have been better, but it looks worse. So they're waiting for a patch that will never arrive, and they spend even more for a shitty console, for a useless console that besides some titles that run better, some of them run even worse or look worse than the original one. And I could open, an entire chapter about the PlayStation 5 Pro and the fact that was sold even without the Blu-ray player, a Pro version without even a Blu-ray player. Do you remember when Lord of the Fallen came out? People that played at launch has a total different experience of people that played it now. Not only people that bugged it now paid like maximum $20 for a complete game with a crazy amount of updates and a game that runs well, compared to people that spend $60, $70 and were the beta tester. So, don't blame Sony, don't blame Microsoft, don't blame Nvidia, don't blame scalpers, don't blame developers, blame yourself. You will be there pre-ordering, sometimes paying it before, and then complain the day one, oh, but the game is broke, I'm so pissed, but I'm gonna pay also for the DLC maybe. You created the mess. One pre-order, one DLC, one season pass, one overpriced console at a time. You're not the victim in this industry, my fellas. You are literally the fuel that keeps it alive. You're my friends. You are the problem.